a totally terrific £20,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer spectacular. You could use that cash to splash out on a holiday, make the garden glam, buy a new car, or just save it for a rainy day. Whatever you'd spend £20,000 on, make sure you don't miss the chance to make it yours. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Many of the people that you had invited to come and speak were people who've been elected in their own countries. I'm thinking of people like Suella Braverman. I'm thinking of Nigel Farage, who has been a member of the European Parliament, of course, had an enormous impact on British politics. And Viktor Orban, who has been elected and re-elected. Many people may not care for the Prime Minister of Hungary, but he's certainly an elected person.
And in addition, we had about 15 to 16 members of the European Parliament who were also elected, and they really live in Brussels. And you would imagine that Brussels, being the head of the capital of the EU, would allow elected members of its own parliament to have an opportunity to voice their views. So I think what was very interesting about this is that the mayors overplayed their hands, so that because they overplayed their hands, all public opinion became entirely on our side. It was so evident, so transparent, that this was really an attempt to use the police instead of arguments to react to our conference, that it was a real direct threat, and it is still a direct threat to the freedom of assembly and to free speech.
So how do you think it leaves it? Is it more likely or less likely that there'll be future bans?
I think this is a trial run. What I'm really worried about is that if the future of democracy and free speech depends on the ruling of one judge, and you have to remember that 3 other judges ruled against us, then democracy is in big trouble. What worries me absolutely is that a strong body of political opinion amongst established politicians believes that it is okay to cancel conferences and to crush the people's opinions and prevent the freedom of assembly. The democracy actually depends on these foundational values.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from tonight,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections.
We'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from tonight at midnight on GB News.
Very good evening to you. You're watching and listening to GB News. 11 o'clock and polls have closed. Counting is getting underway in many of the elections held today across England and Wales. Millions of people have been voting for councillors, mayors and police commissioners. It's being seen as a major test of public opinion ahead of the upcoming general election. Well, as polls closed, Labour's National Campaign Coordinator Pat McFadden said he's focused on turning the page after what he called Conservative decline.
We're going to have lots of results over the next few days, but we believe when all accounting is finished that we'll have shown real progress and real momentum in the years since Keir Starmer became leader.
Forecasts suggest that the Conservatives could lose up to half of the council seats that they're defending in England. Transport Secretary Mark Harper says the party is expecting a difficult night.
If you look around the country, Conservative councils deliver better services for lower costs. Police and Crime Commissioner elections that are Conservative have less crime than Labour ones. You're safer in one of their areas. That's the record that they're standing on.
And we'll have full coverage right through the night here on GB News on all of those results, so do stay with us for that. Meanwhile, the government's apologised to veterans after reports that some were turned away from polling stations today because their cards weren't on the official list of acceptable IDs. Veteran Minister Johnny Mercer has vowed to do all he can to make sure veterans' cards are added to the list of valid identification. However, Labour says the government's had years to make sure the cards were included. Today's elections are the first time many voters in England and Wales have had to present ID to vote. Well, in other news, the daily number of migrants arriving here in the UK in small boats has now hit a new 8-month high. 711 people were detected crossing the English Channel on Wednesday. That brings the total number who've made the journey so far since January to nearly 8,300. According to the Home Office, that's up 34% compared to the same time last year. Foreign Secretary David Cameron has been to Kyiv to meet President Zelensky there. The visit comes after the UK's multi-year commitment to deliver £3 billion of military support to Ukraine. It includes precision-guided bombs, air defence missiles and equipment for 100 mobile air defence teams to help shoot down Russian drones and missiles. Lord Cameron emphasised the UK's steadfast support.
The UK is once again absolutely leading the way in how we support Ukraine. The announcement by the Prime Minister that we will give £3 billion every year for as long as is necessary, and we've just really emptied all we can in terms of gifting equipment, and the biggest amount of equipment we've been able to give so far, and some of that is arriving today.
And today was the warmest day of the year so far for all 4 home nations. England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland all recorded a temperature above 20 degrees Celsius. However, more warnings of thunderstorms have been issued after thousands of lightning strikes swept across the country overnight. A yellow weather warning is in place after a large part of Midlands, East Anglia and eastern Wales were warned of more weather. For the latest stories, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, though, it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Friday's newspapers with 3 comedians. I'm Cressida Wetton and tonight I'm playing Gooseberry to Headliners' answer to Patrick Christie's and Emily Carver. It's power couple, Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. Which one's which, guys?
I don't know. They're both very good looking.
They are, aren't they? They are.
I was thinking that today. He looks great. I mean, she looks great.
They look great. Brilliant. OK, that was smooth. Right, let's have a look at the front pages for tomorrow. The Daily Mail has whose side is Labour really on? The Telegraph leads with PM to offer Ireland-Rwanda deal. The Guardian has PM to allow oil and gas exploration at sites intended for offshore wind. The Mirror has FA talks over Cup crisis. iNews has Labour woos Team Trump as Starmer prepares for power. And finally, the Daily Star has FA talks over Cup crisis. And those were your front pages. OK, kicking off the in-depth look into Friday's front pages with the iNews poll.
Yes, thanks, Krista. Labour woos Team Trump as Starmer prepares for power. So David Lammy, of all people, will meet Republicans and Democrats as US and UK elections approach. And Trump ally heaps praise on the shadow foreign minister. A senior ally to Trump heaped praise on David Lammy by describing him as far preferable to David Cameron, which I guess is a compliment. I mean, I have heard David Lammy compared to David Cameron on the internet, but that was for different reasons.
Fair enough. OK, yeah, initially I thought, what? How can the Republicans like Labour? Oh, hang on. And then they just lay into Cameron. He's moralising. They're sick of him telling them what to do. You don't like being told what to do, Lewis. Would you, do you think this is fair?
Is it fair? Well, I think this is what happens. You know, they got to, I mean, the Tories, I mean, Trump has to be nice to somebody. These are the people coming in, that they're moving in next door. Of course, he's not going to say, we expect these people to be horrible people because they're moving in next door.
But they didn't have to be that warm, did they? They didn't have to say far preferable. No, I think like this guy.
A lovely little bit of twisting by iNews here, a little bit here, I think, because what they're really doing is they're picking up on the fact that Trump is criticising David Cameron because the Trump campaign is not fully behind the Ukraine spending.
Yes.
And David Cameron has been the guy travelling around the US with a begging bowl saying, look, please, can we continue to support the Ukraine? And Trump is not behind that. I don't think he cares who's in power in the UK. He just cares if he's in power or not.
Fair, yeah, good point.
And this guy, David Cameron, he reminds me of like a prime minister that Britain had back in the day. And I think that can be pretty annoying. Yeah, he was the prime minister.
He was, yeah. There was
he was prime minister.
Most famous for Brexit and pigs.
Call me.
Oh.
Well, yes. OK, what's the Telegraph going with, Lewis?
The Telegraph has PM to offer Ireland Rwanda deal. This is something quite interesting, is that I think Rishi thinks that it's a definite success, that he's going to be sending people to Rwanda, people who've immigrated to Britain without being asked. I was invited. By a woman.
To the discussion?
By a woman to come to this country. It wasn't my own idea to come here. And just a woman was nice to me, and I just had that was the first time that had happened.
Told you it was a safe country. Gave you assurances. Look at you now.
Yeah, I'm on TV, which is not a good place for me to, and I don't feel that well. That's so don't say to me you're not doing that well, Lewis. I mean,
have you heard of broccoli? Anyway.
Yeah.
You were saying, back to Rwanda. So Rishi is saying to them, hey, we've upset you with our Rwanda bill. You think it's so effective that people are coming to you. Why don't you join in and send some of your migrants?
I mean, I can imagine there's many Irish people, if the news is anything to go by, that are quite happy with this, because there have been some tensions in Ireland. And I'm not talking about the tensions, I'm talking about the new tensions about immigration and the fact that they seem to be this kind of pocket on the sort of corner of the European snooker table, which they put all the extra immigration balls into, is going to be the analogy I'm sticking with. I don't know if it works, Cressida. Yeah.
I luckily don't know anything about sport, so I've got no idea if that works.
You know, there's a lot going on in Ireland at the moment, and it's the thing that gets lost, I think, with immigration is the loss of culture. So you spend many a century building a community and a culture, and Ireland in particular is famous for their culture. We're not allowed to be proactive or positive about our culture, but they can, and they get a whole day to celebrate it, and they all get drunk and everyone thinks that's groovy. But they do have a culture, and it is being undermined by the constant influx of new people that are not assimilated. Now, you could say, you can call me anything you like for saying that, but it's true in all walks of life. If you take a group of people and you add to it in some way, and they don't join in with the group, then it undermines the group's strength.
Oh, that's what you're thinking. You're thinking that. It's just that new people are coming, and Ireland was doing so well on their own, and they thought it was going to go on like this forever, and then it gets taken away from them. And so basically, this Rwanda thing is not going to repel anybody.
Well, they're saying it has already, aren't they? That's Rishi's claim at the moment about his bright idea. Moving on to The Guardian now, Paul.
PM to allow oil and gas exploration at sites intended for offshore wind. So fossil fuel companies will be allowed to explore for oil and gas under offshore wind power sites for the first time. The government will announce on Friday, in a move which campaigners say is further proof that ministers are abandoning the climate agenda. And that is good news. I think this will be welcome news to many people.
Yeah.
We have to have all options available. We have to have this smorgasbord of fuel options available to us as a country. Sovereignty of fuel, by the way, is the cornerstone of any good climate policy. You have to be able to be sovereign in your fuel supply in order to think about how you're going to be efficient. Taking fuel from far-flung places is not climate friendly.
Well, that sounds very... You can't argue with that, can you, Lewis? We want to have fuel sovereignty.
We can have fuel sovereignty without having fuel. We can get it from other places. We just have to make sure that we're nice to those other places before we get that fuel. There's lots of countries that have been very successful that didn't have any fuel.
This is amazing. So Lewis Schaefer's strategy for getting fuel is diplomacy.
Yeah, being nice to people.
That's extraordinary. We could be freezing by Christmas, couldn't we, under that
I think England was a cold country, and then they discovered coal.
England was a cold country, and then they discovered coal.
And then people became warmer.
Their own coal, their own sovereign coal.
Yeah,
that's
and then
Paul's
they became
point.
richer. I don't think they had coal forever. They didn't have coal. This country didn't have coal forever.
We still got coal. We just don't dig it out of the ground.
Yeah, but then they started to dig it out of the ground and they became successful. So all we need to do is become nicer. I agree with you. Of course I agree with you.
You really struggle to say that, Lewis.
Do you know what? Fair play for trying.
She didn't want me. She wanted me to have a fight with you.
No, she doesn't. She wants us to
Trust me, Lewis, I want fewer fights, not more. And finally, let's end this section with the Daily Star, Lewis.
Finally, yes. This is Fake Tan Friday and a picture of Donald Trump. Britain turns orange as 52% of us. I think maybe I'm almost British. I've been here for 24 years. Reach for this Saint-Tropez. I guess, I don't know what that is.
Saint-Tropez? You don't know what Saint-Tropez is?
No, I know what it is, but is it...
type of fake tan. It's a brand, and it's supposed to be one of the better ones, as opposed to the stuff that makes you stink of Weetabix.
Yes, okay.
Not that I would know.
Well, what they said was that 52% of all people in the country, I don't know how they came up with this number.
They got boffins, Lewis.
We're going to use fake tan before the bank holiday, which is coming up this weekend, and that 49% of these 200 people think that Donald Trump is the worst user of fake tan.
Well, so they've done a study of fake tan users and slipped a political question in at the last minute. Paul, any fake tan experience?
None whatsoever. I won't be wearing any this weekend. It's 10 degrees out there.
Yeah.
What's the point of having fake tan under a fleece top?
Well, you know, the point of fake tan is that when you think, oh, it's fine, I'll just go out in layers, and then all of a sudden the sun comes out because it's England and you can't trust the weather, and suddenly you've got maybe sort of reasonable coloured shoulders and terribly white legs.
That is me, to be fair.
That's why people...
I've got like a tanned arm because I lean out the window whistling at women.
Wait, what does that mean?
No, I
That's
don't do that.
Sorry, I wasn't even listening.
Don't interrupt him being sexist, Lewis. OK, right, that's the front pages looked at. Time for a break now. Join us in part 2 for a story about students getting out of hand and some unhelpfully late news about what you needed to know about what to bring to vote in the mayoral election today. Don't go away.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
In the studio, the chairman of the Royal Society of St George, that's Nick Dutt. Congratulations on St George's Day.
Thank you very much, and happy St George's Day to you and all the listeners, all the viewers.
What does it mean to you, Nick? What are you going to do today, for instance?
I'm attending an event in London for a society that celebrates St George's Day. But as a society, over the last few days, we've done a number of things. So a number of the branches around the country have held events to celebrate St George's Day.
Dare I say that's sort of passed under the radar, probably, for most people, and they sound like exactly the sort of things we ought to be doing as a country today. Eamon's campaigning for us to have a bank holiday like the Irish do. Eamon would come in on the 17th of March, head to toe, dressed in green, and doesn't understand why we English are so... I think it's self-deprecation, but he thinks it's just sort of, what, snobbery or... reticence to...
it's very hard to explain to somebody who's Irish, who celebrates their national day, why people in England don't have the same enthusiasm. That's the thing.
And I struggle with that. I absolutely agree. I think we should celebrate it. We should celebrate what unites us rather than what divides us.
Definitely, yeah.
And I agree. I think, and thanks to your channel, the 10 and a half event was broadcast, and we've this year seem to have a much bigger awareness of St George's Day. But over the last decade or so, there have been certain headwinds. That certainly patriotism has been conflated with nationalism. It's made worse now as well because of the underlying trends, shall we say, in universities and schools to push a narrative that undermines all our history, what we've ever done. Now, yes, there are some bad things, but we've done good things. There's some great people.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, starting with Friday's Guardian poll. Boris Johnson has tried to vote without photo ID. Who does he think he is? Lewis Schaefer?
He's not that well known. Boris Johnson turned away from polling station after forgetting photo ID. So this is photo ID, and it's something that we all need now if we're going to vote in person. If you do postal votes, you can just send as many as you like in and write Joe Biden at the top, apparently, and that's how you become US president. But in this country, if you want to vote in person, you need voter ID, and there are forms of voter ID that you can use, like driving licence, passport, and a pass card, which is apparently a proof of age. Blue badge, apparently, as well. But Boris didn't have his, and he probably should have known, and I can't feel too sorry for him. I mean, I know he's bumbling Boris, but I'm surprised he didn't have anyone advising him to do this correctly.
I am also surprised. I mean, I don't think it was a case of mistaken identity, or
No.
it was just a case of jobs worth doing the right thing, etc.
No, I don't think that was what it was. I think they're just trying to make a point for the next election, the election that matters, whether they stay in office. They're trying to say that we're going to be checking on your thing, and even Boris Johnson wasn't able to vote, and you're not going to be able to vote, and that's what this is about.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with voter ID, I must admit. I think it's a good thing.
But do you agree with what I just said?
I try not to, but on this occasion, I actually did. See, we were really struggling tonight because there are things you're saying that I'm agreeing with quite often, which is difficult for me, Lewis.
Deal with it.
Sorry, that was we just lovingly looked into each other's eyes.
I didn't want to interrupt. The sexual tension's killing me. So outside of your affairs, outside of this. Where are we?
Also, there was a serious problem today, actually, because veterans have veterans ID, and I wasn't aware of this. And veterans did go to the polling station today and were unable to use their veterans ID. Now, this is just something that's been forgotten, or maybe not. I wasn't aware that there's veterans ID, and because it's veterans, it invokes an emotion of some kind. So it seems important that they should have it. But do you know what? As much respect as I have for all of our veterans, and thank you very much, guys and girls, but we've all kind of known that it's driving licence, passport, or whatever, and I'm sorry they didn't get a chance to vote, because everyone deserves the chance to vote, but I can't feel too sorry for them.
Well, I keep seeing posters for it everywhere in London, but I don't know, everyone doesn't live in London, so...
I think what they were doing is they're trying to say, when the next election comes, you better have a picture on your thing. And that's trying to scare off the people who might not vote for them. Yeah, there are a few people who don't have pictures on their ID, but there are lots of people on the other side who don't have pictures on their ID.
So it all balances out.
Yeah.
Brilliant. OK. At GB News, we dream of air conditioning units falling from the sky. So what are these people complaining about in The Guardian?
That's exactly right. I want one to hit me in the head right now. Angry fans see... No, don't wish that on me, please. I'm having a bad time. Not my nice tie, though. I wanted to point it out. Anyway, angry fans seek compensation from Co-op Live, which is a new arena, after third opening show axed. And this is there were three shows because an air conditioning part falls from the gantry during a sound check. And luckily there was nobody below there, but I guarantee if there was somebody below there and a piece from an air conditioning unit falls, it's not little feathers or something, and it would have killed somebody. And this is in Manchester, where they had that other thing, that horrible thing that happened, which I'm trying to forget about. So they canceled the thing, and now all these stodgy people are complaining, oh, we didn't get to our show, whatever. But they would have complained even more if they would...
Hit by an air conditioner. Yeah. Maybe what they want is a working arena without any falling air conditioning units. Yeah. Is that too much to ask him?
No, not at all. I did understand that part of the story, but in true Gammon style, I had no idea who Boogie Wit Tahoody is. Yeah. And I still don't. I also had no idea what the Co-op Live was. I mean, I was reading this story thinking it sounded like the Co-op had put on some sort of tribute act to raise money for the local children's play area. I didn't know what they were on about.
Well, they're known for funerals, aren't they? Not live.
But Co-op Live apparently is a big arena. It's in a bit of trouble. It spent a lot of money, £365 million for this venue. But Lewis is absolutely right. I mean, I'm sure the people who didn't see Boogie Wit Tahoody are very disappointed. However, it hurts. It's not a cool way to die when an AC unit falls on your head.
Well, I've been here for 24 years, and I'm like surprised they even have air conditioning in the country.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought that was just them showing off because we don't have it here. Right, Paul, what's this about students on a lovely, wholesome camping trip in the eye?
That's not quite what's happening, Krista, but let me explain. Students set up pro-Palestine camps at British campuses after US clashes. So protests are being held at Leeds, Manchester, Newcastle, Bristol, Sheffield and Warwick, with students urging universities to divest from Israel. And is it just me, or are we living in some sort of bizarro world now? Because it doesn't seem like there is any free thinking at universities across the world anymore. Hamas, just so you all know, are a prescribed terrorist group. What happened on October the 7th was a terrorist attack, and Israel have every right to defend themselves. What's happened since? Well, that's up for debate. But nobody within these protests seems to grasp that.
Well, I think a lot of them might say, well, we're not here for Hamas, we're here for the general Palestinian population. And I would argue they should be protesting against Hamas.
Well, that's a really good point. But where were they when it was all going on in Syria for years and years and years and years and years and years, and still going on in Syria for years? I think this is what I'm talking about, free thinking. People are just going with the current thing, as Nick Dixon would say. And they are doing so at sort of the detriment to their own intelligence. These are top universities. I mean, we've seen the clashes in the US.
Yeah, but we've seen this before. These universities, they're always doing horrible, like, research for food and stuff like that. So they can't be respected. But you got to respect these kids. They want to go out and have a party, and they want to have a demo. They're basically reliving. You're too young to remember this, and so are you. But I remember the Vietnam War demonstrations, and they were unbelievable. They were just so much. They were so much fun. And you're not going to tell me at age 13 that I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on.
You don't know what's going on now. You're 43 now.
You know what is going on? It's lots of young people getting together. I read earlier that they were there swigging wine. They've all turned up in their fancy outfits. I mean, you've got a point. It's a great way to pick up chicks, right? If if women care about this cause, then yeah, I think do you know, I'm so glad that we didn't have social media in the same way when I was this age, because who knows, I might have been there.
I find it difficult, the comparison between Vietnam. I know it's obvious, Vietnam and this particular conflict. I think there are gaps in that comparison, and I'm not sure it stands up to scrutiny. But I do understand what you're saying, and you know, students will student. We can't hold it against them. It's just, I'd love for them to...
Yeah, but there's a bit of me that just wants the police to get in there and pick each one up. Well, they did put some of them in the back of a van. I find it very frustrating to watch.
Yeah. I'm with you. But I feel they're also protesting against me. This is what's happened, you know. I was there in the 1970s, moratorium, 69, 70, 71, and hike. But now I'm here, and they're...
protesting against vegetables.
Against me.
It never stopped. The protesting never stopped.
It's the circle of life. OK, moving on to the Telegraph. And it's another great day for drivers, Lewis.
Yes. Now, I don't know where you came up with that, but a oil boss accused of driving up petrol prices by colluding with rivals. This is what the headline says. But the real story is that the FTC, which is in America, this is an American story, is allowing Exxon Mobil, the biggest oil company in America, and one of the biggest, to join with Pioneer Oil Natural Resources, which is another big company, to join. But they said, oh, well, we don't like this guy, so you can't have this guy on the board. So basically, they're just letting the thing happen.
Who's just letting the thing happen?
The U.S. government's letting the thing happen.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't harm them in any way, does it? I mean, there appears to be a lot of accusation in this article. And, of course, I want to believe that our oil tycoons are all rotten, because largely they are. Of course they are. It's the biggest greed business in the world, isn't it?
Don't they all sit around smoking cigars on a big pile of money, isn't it?
And not only that, OPEC is this collaboration of all of the worst types of people in the world getting together and choosing who could be in their gang.
Sorry.
Yeah, communists, yeah. Exactly. And that's what's happening. There doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence in here, because I was thinking, right, where can I get stuck into this chap? He's quite clearly... But, you know, there is quite a conflict of evidence in here, and it doesn't feel like Mr. Sheffield has done anything that I can see is terribly, terribly wrong. The idea that an oil tycoon would fix the oil markets in some way...
And to make the prices higher.
...is what I expect them to do every day of the week.
And it's only one guy. It's not as if there are dozens of guys. We don't want any of these dozens of guys. It's just one guy. So it's just a lie.
It's a total non-story. OK, finally in this section, the Daily Mail with news of the greatest civil unrest in Peckham since Lewis Schaefer moved in.
Tied himself to a tree. What year was that?
Nah, I don't know what year.
That has to be quick for this to be slewed, mate.
Sorry.
Police have arrested 45 people today as a coach bound for Bibby Stockholm, which is not a folk band, barge left with no migrants on board. A mob blocked its path and attacked police officers. So Scotland Yard have confirmed this afternoon they've arrested people for offences including obstructing the highway and one for racially aggravated public order offence. Every single time, I think we see this. I get conflicted when I read these stories because I believe in the right to protest. I find it difficult. The thing when you hear about the police being attacked, or anyone being attacked for that matter, what you have to understand is they are only doing their job, right? So they are sent there to check that lorry, to put that minibus. That minibus is doing its job. The minibus doesn't have feelings, but the person driving it does, and the organisation behind the minibus, they do. And so I have a bit of an issue there. But there are lots of amusing digs because this is in the Mail. So I thought, well, this is quite interesting. They seem to be at first on the side of the protesters, but of course they're not at all. And they point out things like they were wearing £180 Beats headphones, a £200 Lululemon coat, which is something I don't really know about, and a £300 North Face jacket somebody was wearing. So really what they're saying is these are middle-class people that are named after flowers and vegetables.
And they're not from Nunhead. I live in a part of Nunhead. I live in Peckham. Sorry, I live in Peckham. I live in Nunhead, which is part of Peckham. I forget where I'm living right now. I'm not feeling that well. The point is, these are not even Peckham kids. They come from all over the place, and they're trying to stop Rishi Sunak's policy.
And they're doing a very good job of it.
And to be fair to them, they succeeded because 0 people left on that minibus for Bibby Stockholm.
I just find that outrageous, the idea that a few kids know better than all of the apparatus and all the authorities that have come to the decision to say, today we're going to put these people on. I mean, what happens next if their mate's in prison? They're just going to protest the prison and get them out.
It's not that these people know better, Cressida. It's that these people have stopped us who supposedly know better. Not that I trust the police, but sometimes you want the police to do what you want them to do, and this is one thing.
They call them Gen Z activists, which is just basically grouping them into their age, which makes them sort of 2005 onwards, I think, or something like that.
No.
So, let's just say yes for the purposes of the
very, very young,
the live television.
We've got to go to a break now. Join us in part 3 for the latest comedy circuit scandal, Donald Trump's TripAdvisor reviews, and the decline of erotica in Hollywood, a.k.a. the death of love. See you shortly.
Good evening. It's time for your latest GB News weather update, brought to you by the Met Office. There's going to be quite a bit of rain around tomorrow, but before then, the risk of some heavy thundery downpours overnight in association with a front that's still lingering across central parts at the moment, and we do still have some blustery conditions because of an area of low pressure over the near continent. But I think it's the thundery downpours across central parts of England into Wales where we're most likely to see any issues. Some of the showery rain will continue as we go overnight, and we'll likely see a few bursts pushing in from the North Sea further north as well, but many areas towards the northwest of the UK staying dry, some clear skies, but for most a relatively mild start to the day tomorrow. As we go through tomorrow itself, then more rain to come across central parts of England, Wales, and some showers across northern England and into southern Scotland too. Some of these could be heavy and thundery. Lots of cloud and showery rain continuing across many areas, but towards the far north and the far south of the UK, we should have some decent dry and sunny weather. In the sunshine, it will feel quite warm, albeit temperatures not quite as high as they were today. As we look towards the weekend, and well, it is looking pretty messy. On Saturday, there's going to be quite a bit of cloud and outbreaks of showery rain across the northern half of the UK before some showery stuff is likely to push its way up from the south as we go through the day, and that could be heavy, possibly even thundery. More mixed weather to come as we go through Sunday into Monday. There will be some drier, brighter weather at times, but also plenty of showers as well. I'll see you again soon.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Coming up from midnight through to 6 a.m, GB News is Britain's election channel. We'll bring you full election coverage, including the by-election result in Blackpool South. Tom Harwood, please tell us more.
Yes, that's right. Over the last 20 hours, every single adult in England and Wales has had the chance to vote in some form of election. There have been thousands of councillors up for election, 10 metro mayors from London to Manchester to the West Midlands, also police and crime commissioners, and, as you mentioned, a Westminster parliamentary seat too. There's a wave of elections across the country, and we're going to be following all the results as they begin to trickle in from midnight. We're expecting some council results fairly early on, and indeed that parliamentary by-election too. And that's not all. It's going to continue right through to the morning and indeed the afternoon. Special coverage here on GB News. It won't stop as all the results come in, and some of them are looking very tight.
All right, thanks, Tom. Back to headliners. Now, I haven't seen a comedy circuit scandal in a while, so I guess we would do a whopper like this one in the Times, Lewis.
Yes, we are. Comedians outraged by stand-up's death threat to Zionist woman. And this is this guy, Dane Baptiste. He's 42 years old. He said, I want you to sit down with your husband and kids and imagine what their lives will be without you, because North London is a very quick trip to make, he said to this woman, who we don't know who it is, but she's probably Jewish, and this is Dane Baptiste. I like the guy until he gave me a call a few years back and said, Barry, I don't know what I can say. There are things you can't say when you're on TV.
Are you saying he was calling you because you're Jewish, or about some of your behaviour, or
about
separate?
Some of my behaviour. I didn't think I'd done anything wrong, but many times I've done something wrong and people didn't like what I did. But he has, I don't know whether he's innocent or guilty.
He did make that post, didn't he? I mean, that's not being argued. What we don't know is what happened before that. He's talked about his family being stalked online, but I don't know exactly what that means. Other people I've seen on social media criticising, saying, no, that's not what happened at all. But it's very violent language, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't get away from that.
First things first, we always abide by the same code on here. If we talk about comedians, we normally shut down shop and we don't say too much because, you know, we've got respect
they could talk about us.
Because we respect fellow comedians. But in
you
this
wish
case,
they'd talk about us.
Dane Baptiste way overstepped the mark. Even if you park the potential anti-Semitic aspect of this, his first emotional reaction is the words that he used within his apology, was, in fact, to doorstep this woman, i.e. turn up to her house and unalive her.
Sorry, you don't mean he didn't do that?
No,
you
he
mean
did. He wrote that he would do that.
It.
So whether that's figuratively or whatever, I don't care, because I don't believe in violence against women. I don't care how angry you are. I don't care if you think you're being stalked online. Every single one of us is being stalked online. At no point have I ever issued a death threat. And in the community in which I grew up in, if you treated a woman this way, it would be held against you for the rest of your life. And I'm afraid Dane Baptiste here has really let himself down. There will be no justification for this, and I'm sure his career will carry on. He's a very funny comedian. However, this will be a stigma that sits with him for the rest of his career.
So if he had said this to a man...
He won't say it to a man. I can tell you why he won't say it to a man.
He said it to me, possibly.
Yeah, on the phone. He didn't make that publicly. He didn't threaten you publicly, though, did he? And you have to... and Dane, this is to you, mate. I have to ask you, would you do this if this was a man? Because I doubt you would, mate. I really doubt you would. To talk
I'm telling you that he did.
It's anecdotal, isn't it? This guy went on to his Instagram...
It has to do with me. When you don't believe me.
There's some of the things you say, like, you know, baked beans give you cancer or whatever, that don't make sense. But what I'm saying here is I just cannot abide what he's done.
Well, I'll be really interested to see how this plays out in the coming weeks. I'm sure there'll be plenty of chatter about it online. The Independent next, and Trump doesn't recognise familiar places. Is this cognitive decline or something more sinister, Paul?
Trump rants London is unrecognisable and has opened the door to jihad during wild rally speech. This is in The Independent. He said, "We have seen what happened when Europe opened their doors to jihad," by which he really means Muslims. He told his supporters at an event, "Look at Paris, look at London. They are no longer recognisable," he said, offering no evidence whatsoever for his wild statements. Now, that is conjecture. That last statement is conjecture by The Independent. And Donald Trump does say very outlandish things on a very regular basis, but to say that there is no evidence whatsoever for these statements is untrue, because we see the capital, particularly in London, I can't speak for Paris, overtaken every weekend with these protests. They're always the same thing. We hear them calling for jihad. We also hear peaceful stuff as well. But don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong here. They're marching through the streets where Islamist terrorists have killed women, children, and police officers. There is evidence to suggest that there is a problem here. However, this is an outlandish statement from Donald Trump, but it's not. It's well within his ballpark. It's well within his ballpark, and I don't think
it's not outlandish. It's not outlandish. He's sitting there in America, and he comes here, and he says this is not the same city that he expected when he came here 20 or 40 or whatever years ago that he came. So you can't say that he doesn't. What it is it's a slight aside that we in this country, and he was speaking about Paris too, go like, oh wow, he's talking about us. That's great. It's like when Billy Burr was talking about me on the other day.
Billy Bird now? I mean, we all know him as Bill Burr, but it's Billy Bird.
I highly recommend, if anyone hasn't seen that, go and find this clip of Lewis being talked about by Bill Burr.
Billy
it's very
Burr.
entertaining.
It's like amazing. You'd like to him. To me, I'm like this part of his life. You can't even see it. Nothing. I'm like a nothing. But it meant a lot to me, and I think that's what he meant. It is, obviously, London is still London, but it's not the London that I came to 24 years.
Well, yeah, places are going to change, aren't they? News in The Guardian now that erotic scenes have declined by 40%. Now, are they measuring that in minutes, encounters, or inches, Lewis?
Anyway, keeping it clean, Hollywood sex scenes declined by 40%. This is in The Guardian. And they've done a study, and it was printed in The Economist, so it must be true. It's The Economist, that Stephen Fallow's this guy. He said that nudity in sex scenes, or whatever they call it, is down 42% in the past 25 years, and they said it's because it affects global releases. That's exactly
Sorry,
what
Lewis,
they said.
I'm going to have to stop you. They said it affects global release.
It affects global. Where does it say?
I think you mean release of the movies.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is that we've become such a sanitised society that we no longer.
The numbers are way down.
Global release sounds like something that happens in the sex scene.
The fact is that people are not that sex-oriented anymore. They don't need it as much.
Right, so it's the death of love, right? Paul, this is plummeting testosterone.
It's just saying that people don't need love as much as they've been successful with the whole thing. So let them have it.
I saw it from a different perspective, actually. I mean, there's no need, is there? There's so much available on the internet now, isn't there? I mean, you don't go to the cinema now to catch a sneaky glimpse of somebody's ankle. You can just log into nakedankles.com and get as much ankle as you like.
Well, there you go. Nakedankles.com. A story you may or may not agree with in the Daily Mail now, Paul, but will you defend to the death our right to cover it on headliners?
I will defend the death's right to cover it, but I won't defend everything in this. Academics defend Cambridge race rail professor's right to free speech after a string of controversial remarks sparked a backlash and attempts to remove him from the university. So this is philosophy researcher Nathan Konfnas, and he's facing expulsion from the Emmanuel College. And Mr. Konfnas came under fire in February after he published a blog post which claimed the number of black professors at Harvard University would approach 0 in a meritocracy, going on to say, and that black would disappear from almost all high-profile positions outside of sports and entertainment.
So he's a wronger.
He describes himself as a race realist.
A race realist,
which
right.
does sound like racist.
It does sound remarkably close to that, Paul, yes.
I am a big fan of meritocracy. I really am. It's the best way to choose any candidate for anything, right? But I cannot believe, and I believe in free speech, as we know, but I can't believe that this would happen if an even playing field was applied. By which I mean, if everybody had the same opportunity in life from childhood through to the age they started their career, if meritocracy was applied, we'd probably see a smorgasbord of colours, shapes and cultures. There is an argument that there isn't an even playing field, but there is no argument, as far as I can see, that black people would become zero.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to try and disprove this guy's opinion. I'm not going to credit it with that, but the point is that he should be allowed to have it. And the university have done the right thing and said, look, they did initially do the right thing, now it's being debated. If you want to fight this guy, you don't shut him down, you write the appropriate response.
Well, yes, but the guy's an idiot, obviously, because it's probably not true. And you know not to say something like that because it's probably not true, and it's not a nice thing to say. So the fact that the guy said it, I think it wasn't at Harvard, it was at Cambridge.
He was at Cambridge, but he was talking about Harvard University in terms of...
At Harvard. So he was probably...
he was obviously saying there was a disproportionate number of black professors.
That makes it something else. He's bad-mouthing America, which is...
Now you're angry.
Yeah, no,
It's the American angle that angers you.
I'm angry at that, but I mean, But from the British side, I think it's perfectly OK.
OK, we've got to go to a break. That's it for part 3. Join us in the final section when we'll find out how monkeys could save the NHS, what language wild animals speak, and why Joe Biden shouldn't be allowed to speak at all. See you in 2.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 p.m.
So J. Cole, who is a rapper, says that he felt terrible after releasing a song aimed at fellow rapper Kendrick Lamar and vowed to pull the track off streaming services. He said, "I ain't gonna lie to y'all. The past 2 days felt terrible," he told an audience at the Dreamville Festival in North Carolina. "I damn near had a relapse," he said.
There's a lot of young people, especially, that would look at that and they will take it not just as entertainment.
It doesn't happen in any other form of art that I can think of. This is not happening in country music, is it?
Well, it's the same problem in both cases, isn't it? Who's doing the regulating? And surely it's each case on its merits, isn't it? You don't just ban a genre.
Why is there such a lot of hatred for a man who usually would have trash-talked back to stand up and say, this doesn't sit well with me and I love this guy? If we look at, I think his name was Cody Fisher, the semi-professional footballer who died in a club because someone stabbed him. Yeah. Now, he was stabbed because he stepped on someone's trainers. This is the level of ego we're seeing from a lot of young men who don't have any output of being able to channel that energy, and a lot of it is stemming from cultures like football, hip-hop, these sorts of things. So I'm just saying it's refreshing to see a man who could have easily wiped the floor with his lyrics say, I don't have to,
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I took this into the wrong direction. It's not about pointing out the areas of concern. Actually, this story is saying, look, music and art can be giving you an example of how to live a slightly better life.
That's free speech. Saying, sorry. I'm sorry, I choose not to fight back because I love you. It may look like a wimpy thing to do, but it's still free speech.
You know what? I love you, Paul. Sorry about earlier.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, beginning this section with The Guardian and the exciting news that monkeys can do medicine. But do they go on strike as often as junior doctors, Paul?
Probably not. Researchers say they have observed a male Sumatran, I've really phonetically read that then, Sumatran orangutan treating an open facial wound with sap and chewed leaves from a plant known to have anti-inflammatory and pain-relieving properties. Now, there does appear to be a contradiction in this between that narrative of the story and the headline, because in the headline it says that this is a first for wild animals.
Surely not a contradiction between a headline and the body of the story.
Absolutely there is. And it isn't the first time, because it's been witnessed in wild animals all over the place. It's like, I know we're top of the food chain and we imagine ourselves to be the most intelligent.
Some of us.
Some of us, yeah. Some of us, maybe not so me. I'm in the middle somewhere with the piggies. And so what's happening here is that animals have found out, after years and years of evolution, that if they rub certain leaves and berries and sap on themselves when they get that it makes them feel better. So that's the story, Lewis. Over to you, mate.
Well, that is the story. That is the story. I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was a bit shocking that they were doing things that humans were doing. It basically proved humans right. So maybe the story should be humans found to be using things that make them feel better.
But it's interesting. Yeah. I thought it meant we were watching evolution in action. I thought they just found out how to do it.
You can't watch evolution in action. It takes forever. If you believe in it, of course.
Brilliant. OK, The Telegraph now. And Joe Biden has all the finesse of a creepy drunk uncle at a wedding, Lewis.
Yeah, he does. Whether he did this or not is something else. Joe Biden hits out at xenophobic Japan and says that Japan isn't doing that well because they're not that nice to immigrants, and that we in America are really nice to immigrants, and that's why we're doing that well. Well, America's an immigration country, and Japan isn't an immigration country.
And he says the whole of the economy is better because of the migration.
Because of the migration. But I mean, what does Joe Biden know about anything? And who knows if he said this? And who knows what he meant by saying it? I mean, I feel for the guy.
But you've got to at least believe something in the story, or we can't really do the show. Paul, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it makes zero sense, doesn't it? Because his point is that an economy works better with immigration, and maybe that's up for debate. But nearly every economy in the world is struggling at the moment, including the US, which does have lots of immigration. So that doesn't seem to be sort of the key indicator to me. He's clearly been told something in his morning briefing, something about immigration in Japan. He's put them together after having a quick chat with his socks, and he's come up with his speech. And you know, that's how this is the leader of the free world.
Brilliant. A quick chat with his socks. I love it. Sticking with The Telegraph, and I'm just learning that giraffes speak I don't speak Swahili, Paul.
BBC presenter says calling animals by their English names is jarring, absolutely jarring. Gillian Burke said she prefers to refer to animals by their traditional Swahili names rather than those commonly used by the BBC's acclaimed nature programmes. In my own writing, she says, I prefer reintroducing these familiar animals by their Swahili names. So, Navudu for elephant. I don't know why I use an accent. I'd really like to apologise.
Brilliant.
Twigger for giraffe. Now, she does go on to say, and make a really good point, that it does help to use the English names. to illustrate the story, because that's what we call them, right? I mean, this is totally fine, but it's not news. Basically, this lady has said, I do things better than you, and I'm better, OK?
It's like somebody that knows how to pronounce the French stuff in a
So
restaurant,
what? Who cares?
isn't it?
Move on. You're already on Springwatch or whatever.
And she's not even Kenyan or whatever. I think comes from Kenya. That she was an immigrant person who was living in Kenya. So Swahili isn't her natural language from way back. It probably wasn't anybody's natural language from way back. It's been built up over time. It's just she wants to fit in as
She just wants to fit in with giraffes. Maybe she likes the sound of it. OK, it's always good to cover something positive towards the end of the show, and now we've got some good news in the Telegraph, guys.
Magic mushrooms more effective for treating depression in pensioners than young people. And this is a BMJ study that says that people are happier when they're given magic mushrooms as opposed to other things. But they don't say what the other things are.
Money. Love.
It could be any of those things. And it's because and the reason this is in the Telegraph is because the Telegraph people are the exact kind of people who were told about magic mushrooms back in the day, and they believed in magic mushrooms back in the day.
They do exist.
They do exist.
They do exist, and there's a lot of research to say they help people.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, of course they help people, because they were told, oh, you're going to feel something all tingly. And then they feel all tingly. All tingly.
Sounds like something Bill Cosby would say.
What it is this is the Telegraph.
Yeah, and I think we've understood quite clearly what Joe Biden's taking for breakfast. Magic mushrooms.
He's feeling great. All right, finally, Paul. The Express, you've got about 30 seconds to do this.
OK, Fury,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, you're...
So sorry, Cressida.
Pay attention to me.
Sorry.
It's something about lawns, and you love a lawn.
Fury, the UK city as council bans grass cutting for the whole of May. So this is Bradford City Council announced on its Facebook page that it won't be mowing its lawns and green spaces this month in a bid to give insects a chance. Now, we've been doing this for quite some time across the country, and I agree with them. It is a great excuse to not spend council money, because that's all that's going on there. They don't care about the bees and the insects. They just think we're not going to have to pay for a month's worth of maintenance in May.
So cynical. I thought this would upset you, not having mown grass.
No, I think it's important to mow your grass and then photograph it and put it on Instagram to 7 likes.
Check out Paul's lawn on the internet. All right, finally, we're going to have a look at tomorrow's papers. The show is nearly over. So starting with the Daily Mail, whose side is Labour really on? The Telegraph has PM to offer Ireland-Rwanda deal. The Guardian has PM to allow oil and gas exploration at sites intended for offshore wind. The Mirror has FA talks over cup crisis, and iNews has Labour woos Team Trump as Starmer prepares for power. And finally, the Daily Star has Fake Tan Friday, and those were your front pages. That's it for tonight's show. Thanks to my guests, Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. Nick Dixon will be back here tomorrow with Leo Kearse and Jonathan Cogan. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, please do stay tuned for breakfast. Stay tuned now for live coverage with Tom Harwood. Good night.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. It's time for your latest GB News weather update, brought to you by the Met Office. There's going to be quite a bit of rain around tomorrow, but before then, the risk of some heavy thundery downpours overnight, in association with a front that's still lingering across central parts at the moment, and we do still have some blustery conditions because of an area of low pressure over the near continent. But I think it's the thundery downpours across central parts of England into Wales where we're most likely to see any issues. Some of the showery rain will continue as we go overnight, and we'll likely see a few bursts pushing in from the North Sea further north as well, but many areas towards the northwest of the UK staying dry, some clear skies, but for most a relatively mild start to the day tomorrow. As we go through tomorrow itself, then more rain to come across central parts of England, Wales, and some showers across northern England and into southern Scotland too. Some of these could be heavy and thundery. Lots of cloud and showery rain continuing across many areas, but towards the far north and the far south of the UK, we should have some decent dry and sunny weather. In the sunshine, it will feel quite warm, albeit temperatures not quite as high as they were today. As we look towards the weekend, and well, it is looking pretty messy. On Saturday, there's going to be quite a bit of cloud and outbreaks of showery rain across the northern half of the UK before some showery stuff is likely to push its way up from the south as we go through the day, and that could be heavy, possibly even thundery. More mixed weather to come as we go through Sunday into Monday. There will be some drier, brighter weather at times, but also plenty of showers as well. I'll see you again soon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You really could be our next big winner with an incredible £20,000 in tax-free cash to play with this summer. What would you spend that on? Well, whilst you're thinking about it, listen to some of our previous winners getting that winning phone call from us.
You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
I'm slipping neck. Oh dear.